We're going to move on now to that unrest in Ferguson, Missouri overnight. It's over a newly uncovered surveillance video that shows Michael Brown hours before he was fatally shot by a police officer. Some say it raises questions about whether he really robbed the convenience store in a later visit. And ABC's Steve Osunsami has the story. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning to you, George. The big question, of course, is why is this video just coming out now? And there's really no good answer for that.
This new video may cast a different light this morning on the events that led to the police shooting death that started a movement.
Justice for Michael Brown!
And overnight, it had people protesting in the streets yet again, with reports of shots fired.
Shut down! Don't shop at Ferguson Market!
When Michael Brown was killed on the streets of Ferguson, Missouri in 2014, this was the video police shared just days after the shooting. The shooting victim is seen with his hands around a shopkeeper's neck as he makes off with a carton of cigarillos.
It's going to be a black male in a white T-shirt. He's running toward Quick Trip.
Police called what happened here a strong-arm robbery and argued that Brown brought this same level of violence to his confrontation minutes later with the Ferguson police officer who killed him.
How can he shoot with his hands in the air? That's what I was.
But this new video from the same store suggests that Brown had left the cigarillos at the corner store the night before, and that people working there had exchanged the tobacco for drugs, something that appears to be happening here. The filmmaker who discovered the video says it was recorded at 1:13 a.m. August 9th, nearly 11 hours before Brown returned to the store.
We're doing this for Mike. We're not just doing this to uncover about Ferguson.
The video is part of a documentary called Stranger Fruit that debuted at a Texas film festival this weekend. It suggests that Brown's argument the next morning was over getting back his things.
They wanted us to think Michael robbed the store because they needed us to think that Michael was aggressive with Darren. The clerk takes the cigarillos, puts it into a plastic bag, and hands the plastic bag over the counter to Michael Brown. That's not stealing the store.
Brown's uncle says police lied about his nephew.
The picture they painted of my nephew was not right. That video, that just dispels one of the lies they was telling.
The store owners strongly deny this, telling ABC News that to turn around and somehow blame folks that have nothing to do with this is shameful, adding, it just didn't happen. This morning, St. Louis County Police tell us they can't confirm the authenticity of the video at this time. Legally, this changes nothing. Police say Officer Darren Wilson knew about the alleged robbery at the store, but had no way of knowing Brown was a suspect.
Whether or not there was a misunderstanding at the store has little to do with the later argument and shooting. There is no video of the argument between Brown and Officer Wilson and no video of the shooting. This just makes the story messier. A civil trial is expected to start next year. George.
Okay, Steve Osunsami, thanks. Let's talk more about this now with our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams, and also former Dallas Police Chief David Brown, now an ABC News contributor. Chief Brown, let me begin with you. And Steve put the question right at the top. Why did it take so long for this to get out? Should the video have been released sooner?
Yes, George, it should have been released sooner. This is not the way you communicate with your citizens in your community. It just lends itself to whether or not the department is holding back other types of evidence that maybe have a different narrative than we've seen for 2.5 years. That's the question it raises, Dan Abrams. But remember, the officer who killed Michael Brown cleared of criminal wrongdoing by a county grand jury, by federal civil rights investigators. Would this video have changed that?
No. This is a compelling theory, but let's remember, it wasn't just that a grand jury decided not to indict. It's that the Department of Justice did a thorough investigation and released an 86-page report based on the blood evidence, based on DNA evidence, based on the eyewitnesses, based on the injuries. All of that together, they concluded, supported Darren Wilson's account of what happened. Now, it's also important to remember that many of the same supporters of Michael Brown initially said, well, what's the relevance of the first video, meaning showing Michael Brown pushing the clerk? And you know what? They were right. And I think that they would be right here, which is
the officer didn't even know he was a suspect.
Right. So what happened there, while interesting and important in terms of sort of the big picture of what happened that evening, isn't really relevant to what happened between Darren Wilson and Michael Brown.
Do you agree with that judgment, Chief Brown?
Yes, but I think that one thing that we're missing, transparency has everything to do with trust. people trusting that you do a thorough investigation lends itself to revealing everything you know about Michael Brown, about Darren Wilson, so that the public can make their own assessment with all of the information rather than holding back some and not having an explanation of why you didn't release it.
That's a fair point. Does this impact, Dan, the civil trial at all?
It potentially could impact the civil trial, because the question would be, why did you release as the police one of it and not the other? And it goes exactly to what Chief Brown is saying, which is trust. And if these jurors in the civil case don't trust the police, that's not helpful to their case. But again, it won't go to the fundamental question. The police's answer to this is they didn't think it was relevant to the investigation. But I think Chief Brown's absolutely right that when you're talking about trust, try and release as much as possible so there are no questions later.
Yep. Dan Abrams, Chief Brown, thanks very much.